Hello, everyone. My name is Lewis Harris, and welcome to the Record in Progress podcast, a podcast that I created in the wake of the 2024 presidential election and really the entire election, where I was relatively surprised by the outcomes. And I beat myself up a little bit because I felt like I could have done more to have the election go the way I wanted to go. And so, because I didn't, I'm trying to reconcile that by creating this podcast, which the purpose of Record in Progress is to share perspectives, stories, and narratives to create understanding and hopefully a pathway towards a unified society that is better for all of us. And so I am lucky to have a good friend in the community, someone who I absolutely admire. And I'm not just saying this to talk her up. She's just a great advocate and somebody who definitely has a perspective worth listening to. And so I will have you introduce yourself.
Hey, everybody. I'm Mindy. Thank you, Lois, for those kind words. You make me choke up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Mindy, how do you identify yourself?
I am a single white female mom of a beautiful 27-year-old and formerly homeless, and currently work as the Human Services Program Manager for a local city,
Excellent.
and politically active, and a veteran.
And a veteran, absolutely important. And thank you for your service, of course. So I know you're local, so you're in Washington State, and we don't have to get any more specific than that if you don't feel comfortable with that. And you did kind of allude to what you do. Human services. What was your title again?
Human Services Program Manager.
Okay, excellent. I feel like it's helpful if people also know some of the other stuff you do because you're on several like state commissions, national commissions, and if you don't want to talk about that's fine, but you do have a unique perspective that I want to center our conversation around because, we all have our processing and reflecting the election results and I respect the fact that different people have different ways of doing that and different places they're starting from in that process. And so we'll just go on to the next question, which is what is a credential that you use most often to sell yourself on job applications?
Well, interestingly, this job was created because of my advocacy. So it was because of my lived experience with homelessness. And, my son struggled with substance use disorder. We have mental health issues in our family. So I advocated for the city to do something and create some type of position that would help people. And I'm the one they ended up hiring. So otherwise, when I do talk with people, I do say that I am a housing and homeless organizer and
Great.
policy. I do throw in policy as well.
Okay. So it's fair to say that you've been affected by the system and now you work in the system. But
Yep.
I don't know if that's your perspective on that.
Oh, 100%.
Okay.
I was just having this conversation with a coworker. Yeah. The system is, and I don't want to say the system is broken
Sure.
necessarily. Some system is broken for sure. A lot of the system, though, is just, it is not set up for success for people who are struggling to find those types of resources. It's just
Right.
not something that our systems have not necessarily been designed by those who have been affected.
Right. And I don't know if you know this, Mindy, but I used to work for the state agency that issues food stamps and other benefits that folks who are homeless or in poverty or under a certain threshold rely on. Right. And as someone who's worked for that system, but also who's benefited from that system because I was disabled at some point and needed the additional assistance, I know personally that those systems are extremely hard to navigate if you don't know how they work. And if you don't know, and it's not even about saying the right thing, it's about one, being honest about your situation, but two, making sure what you say aligns with the reality of your situation and the rules that govern how those benefits are issued. Right. And so those things are not easy to navigate without folks kind of like you who are an advocate for these systems. So glad to have you share.
Thank you.
Yes. So we're going to get into the meat of the discussion. So the first question is, how did you vote in the 2024 presidential election?
I am definitely a progressive person, so I voted Democrat.
And so what are three feelings you have about the results of the 2024 presidential election?
Like you, I I really was shocked. I hear others say we shouldn't have been, but I really, really was. I felt shook and really, really disappointed and and angry. I'm ragey. I cannot believe that half the country, or at least half the voters, are okay with what they have voted for.
Right. Right. I want to ask about the anger
Mhm.
feeling because anger is usually spurred by something and then it's also directed at something. And
Right.
so I'm curious, which part of the election made you angry?
When I found out that I think the number is 15 million less people voted
Yes. Yes.
when the stakes were so high,
Mhm.
like that in itself, I feel that there's a lot of misinformed people who didn't even realize that the price of eggs and gas is not on our current administration. And,
Right.
and they don't even have control over those things. Just a lot of that kind of stuff. Like, how can you be so uninformed or so arrogant, ignorant, if you
Sure.
will?
Okay.
That's how I feel. And then also because I am the mother of a son of color, and it really, I'm very concerned. I'm concerned for all of our marginalized people across the country, and I heard somebody today say, oh, well, we're in a blue state. We don't have to worry about those things. I'm like, wrong. That's
Yeah.
no, we worry about all of our brothers and sisters across the country.
Right.
Like
Say that.
these rights, these freedoms, these protections matter to everybody. And that's the expression that's been going around, the leopard will eat your face. Like, you too will be affected at some point,
Right.
and at the sake of the price of eggs, of which is not actually accurate or true.
So the
Okay.
next question is, what do you fear most about the next Trump presidency?
That's my fear is there going to be a next one, or is he just not going to leave? Like,
Right.
you know, I fear our entire democracy. I fear that the damage that is already starting, that
Mm.
I know of two incidents just today that have already happened in our community. I've got a friend wonderful, beautiful person that is just the kindest, sweetest human. And she is married to a woman and they have two kids. And she went to her gym at 6 a.m. this morning in Edmonds. And somebody was waiting for her in the parking lot and was screaming just really disgusting stuff towards her because of her sexual identity.
Oh,
And
wow.
this person is not even a member of that gym. So that's concerning. Where did they come from? Who are they? How did they know about her? Why are they following her? So she's very shook. And then I
That's
came to work and was sharing with my coworker, and he said his wife wore a Black Lives Matter t-shirt to her work, which is a YMCA in the
okay.
county. And somebody screamed at her, no, they don't. Black
Okay.
lives do not matter. And I'm just, those are just two quick things. I also just returned from DC last night,
Yeah.
and hearing how things are on the federal level and the concerns. The organization I serve on a national low income housing organizations board, and they actually contract with a Republican consulting firm to understand who are they working with and
Right.
how do we create better messaging and all of that. And he even said, this is bleak. The possibility of HUD, the Housing and Urban Development Organization, being decimated, the possibility of actually having 1 million immigrants rounded up and deported, which then affects our agricultural system and our construction. And, the list goes on and on.
Yeah.
Just some of the things that even he was saying as a Republican whose
Mm-mm.
wife used to work for the Heritage Foundation, which is
Okay.
who is behind the Project 2025.
Yeah.
I saw on social media, a city has their local theater, has the production of The Diary of Anne Frank. And there was a whole Nazi rally
Oh,
outside. This kind of emboldened hatred
yeah.
is what worries me. And I'm not so much worried about Trump because honestly, I don't think he's in the greatest of health and cognitively as well. But JD Vance, and he's
Yeah.
putting Matt Gaetz in as attorney general, and he's got, other horrible people.
Right. Right.
Like, I'm just worried about the continuation of Christian nationalism and taking all of these different rights away from people and turning this into this. I don't even know. I mean, that's what I fear.
That's valid. And those examples are scary because I haven't heard anything like you have. But in all honesty, I'm at this point where it's like, I don't know anything. You know what I mean? Because like, I was like you, I was truly surprised at the results. And so I'm holding on to what I know, what's like in here, what, drives me and all that. But when it comes to like what other people are motivated to do and whatnot, I do have some feeling, but I'm not going to stand on what I believe. I'm going to just do the work to find out. And so that's what the podcast is about, is to just get those stories and those perspectives. So thank you for sharing that. And obviously I'm wishing the best for your friends in those situations, but we are in a bleak situation. So
Yeah. Yeah.
So the next question, which might seem counterintuitive, but what do you hope most about the next Trump presidency?
What I hope most is that we're wrong, that,
Right.
because so many of these things need 2/3 of Congress to approve these things.
Okay.
I'm really hoping that there's enough decent Republicans who are going to stand up and say, I'm a Republican, but I'm not a MAGA or Trumper or whatever. That's just not what we do. That's not who
Right.
we are. And that's not something I can stand behind. That's what I'm hoping, that there's
Right.
enough good people who are going to say, we're not doing that.
Crossing my fingers.
Hoping
Um,
everything.
yeah. So what do you believe about the people who voted opposite of you?
So that's been a big struggle.
Okay.
And I know there are some people who just literally want to reclaim the dominance of the white race. That's their words. They want to, and so people like that, or they're just
So sorry, you cut out.
100%
So they want to reclaim the dominance of
the
white
white
man?
race, of white power.
Oh, okay. Right.
There's been
Did
several.
you see that? Did you see that video? It was a Asian guy. It looked like they were at an Asian restaurant. And
Yeah.
then there's
Yeah.
obviously
So
kind of the
that man has
leadership.
been interviewed. So there was that one by the Asian man. There was another one
Yeah.
by Hispanic man. There's another one, and every one, he's just like, no, I'm worried about my white race going away, and I
Right.
want that control back. And in this country, and I'm thinking, I'm Native American descent. You did not come from this country. This wasn't your country. Like,
Right.
what do you mean? All of it just makes my blood boil. My blood boil. So people like that, who truly are of a Trump mindset, that's where I'm raging, right?
Mm,
Then there's people who literally voted on single issues, abortion.
right.
Nobody said they're pro baby death. Nobody has said that.
Right.
What they're pro is choice,
Right.
right? Like, I found myself pregnant as a single mother. For me, abortion wasn't my choice, but I will say I am a follower of Jesus, but I am 100% pro-choice. You get to choose. It's your situation. It's your private medical situation between
Yes.
you and possibly your partner. And if not, rape, incest, whatever, you and your doctor. Like, that's
Right.
not my choice to make for you. And also, I will remind all of these Christian nationalists, we are not to be judging. That's actually a sin, to judge. So all this judging and condemnation and persecution, like, no. That is not what your job is. And it's not my
Right.
job. But just like God gave mankind choice, or humans choice, asking for the same thing. That doesn't mean anybody's going out there and aborting 9-month term pregnancies. Like, it's just ridiculous. But
Yeah.
so the ignorance is astounding. But I look at people and I'm always one of those people that tries to look at, well, why do they think that way? Like, how in the
Right.
world did they come to that thought process? And so I'm always trying to look at what has happened in their life, or what's going on in their situation, what's happening now that may or may not have formed their decision, or has made them so anti something.
Right.
without any knowledge. I read that something about immigrants being deported, and immigrants make up a huge chunk of our workforce, as well as a big portion of our tax base. But yet we're not looking at these corporations, and I might add churches, that are not paying their fair share of taxes, right?
Right.
So, where do we come off saying, no, you can't come to this country seeking a better life, safety, security, just like those Anglo-Saxons did that came over from England,
Right.
right? And stole this country from my ancestors.
Right.
Well, who are you to say now that somebody else can't have that same opportunity
Right.
of, so I'm angry at those people, but others that voted on the economy. There's more money than money, and I just cannot both pay the utility bill and feed my family while trying to keep a roof over our head. I
Right.
get that. They're operating
Right.
out of fear. They're operating out of scarcity mindset. And all they heard was some clown up there saying, I'm going to fix the, completely forgetting that person did not fix it last time. But
Right.
what sticks in their mind, interestingly, stimulus checks. Oh,
And
no,
his signature.
he gave us money. No, he didn't. He actually voted against it. Congress gave you money. And that was due to a global pandemic, of which he also denied. But
Right.
they're not, the memory's been short, right? Like, all I remember is I got stimulus check, and that helped me survive, helped my family.
Right. Well, and
I can't be angry at them. I'm just like, oh, we need so much more civic education.
yeah, well, and you have a good perspective here, right? The folks who are operating out of scarcity and out of fear, we can't really blame them for that. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I don't know. I'm trying my hardest to not blame people for how they voted, but trying to understand really so that in the next 4 years we can hopefully come back and fix whatever's damaged. But
Right.
we'll have to see, because as well as I do, that usually when you get these types in power, they figure out how to keep that power. And
Right.
fool me once.
That's like,
yeah.
that's the fear. And the large Latino male demographic that voted
Right.
for him. And I think, why would they have done that? Why would they have voted against their own interests?
Right.
And those two reasons, that economy, and also predominantly a Catholic demographic that is anti-abortion.
Right. Right. And you did bring some really great points. It's interesting because I've had a couple of interviews already, and I'm just trying to weave the narratives and kind of
Right.
understand. But the women that I've spoken to, when they bring up the immigration concerns, right, and the deportation, they specifically point to the economic void that will create, and
Right.
how it will take away from our agriculture sector, our tax base, and so many other things, right?
Right.
And so I find that kind of interesting, because you're the second woman that I have interviewed, and both of you all hit on that specific subject. And so I don't know. We have to figure out like what threads connect us. You know what I mean? Because I feel like for us to be so blown back by these results, I feel like I'm void of some understanding. And so just trying to march forward, hopefully bringing people together. So
I love that about you.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So the next
Why you're
question
one
is,
of my most favorite people.
I know, and you me, and I'm just trying to figure out how we can be okay. And
Yeah. How do we live amongst our neighbors that voted differently, think differently, and at the same time fight for a better world for all of us, where we all have the opportunity to thrive and achieve the dreams that we're looking for.
Right. Yeah. And it almost puts so much burden on us, because and mind you, folks like you and I, we've worked to get this far. We've worked for the community to get this far. We've worked, and I will, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. Like when I say work, for the folks who don't know, both Mindy and I, like we're talking like we might have a day job, but after that day job, we're like 5 or 6 hours into the evening working on community work type stuff. You know what I mean? And it's like the amount of work that we put into just creating fairness and like a moral standard, and then for all that to go away over some eggs and bacon prices,
Right.
it seems almost insurmountable. But I know I believe in us, we'll keep pushing. But
Yeah. And what I keep saying is, I keep saying two things. A, armor up. So all of us need to put on our armor and fight for our communities and our neighbors near us, right? Fight for all. And at the same time, link arms with one another, because this is going to be a long, grueling battle. And we're going to need to tap out at times and take care of ourselves and protect our own peace.
That's right.
But linking arms, because no one person, group, organization can do this alone. We have to combine, come together, and we may have different agendas, but if the overall agenda is to create a world in which we all, like I said, are able to thrive and live up to our dreams, then that's what we want for all of us, as long as it's not harming someone else. And that's the thing. That's the thing, right? Where one side thinks we're harming, everything's harmful, and it's destroying America, the fabric of the country. And
and some of the gripes that I hear are, over the last 10 years, we created wokeness, right? And not like the demonized wokeness, but what wokeness really was, which was, oh, there are systems that are unequal, even though we say they're equal. And here's the evidence, and how do we change it? And that's really what the drum that we've been beating, or at least I've been beating for the last 10 years is. So the next question is, what is the worst thing about society to you?
Hatred.
Hatred. That's right. Very easy. No, I agree.
See, I didn't even plan this, but pretty much because I've been wearing black ever since last Tuesday, because I'm in mourning. But, I work in human services. Somebody calls me looking for resources. They're in some kind of despair. They need help. I don't ask them, well, how did you vote? Do you have, are you same-sex marriage? What's your nationality? What's your ethnicity? What's your documentation status or citizenship status? Do you go to church? Are you an atheist? I don't ask any of that, because none of that matters. Who's calling me is a fellow human who needs help, and I'm going to help them. None of the other stuff matters. And that's the point, is we're all human. And I think ultimately at the core, we are far more alike than we are different. If people will allow themselves to think, to understand that and to accept that. Now, when you talk about white supremacists, they're not, right? They
hate people.
I can't even wrap my brain around that, because that's just not how I think.
Right.
But yeah, hatred to me is the hatred, jealousy, fear. It's all kind of wrapped in around that same emotion. And
Absolutely.
And that, I think, is the destruction of so much of what we hold near and dear to our hearts.
Right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Next one is, what do you believe is one of the reasons that Trump and the now largely Republican Congress was elected?
Unfortunately, because Biden was propped up for far too long, to the detriment of the Democratic Party, which then the infighting within was going on. And so then the Republican side capitalized on that. And just the blatant misinformation. It's not even it's the blatant lies that were told.
Right.
And how media was used as a tool to misinform people, to redirect people, to, herd the cats over to the other side. But I'm going to fix the economy. And clear, this man could say and do anything, the most vile things. They're eating the dogs and cats, whatever. I can just grab them, by the female body part and do whatever I want. And that was okay, because their own self-interest was, I need cheaper bacon, right? Like, well, as long as he's not grabbing me or my wife, my sister, my mom, and as long as, not eating my dog or cat, we're good.
Wow. Okay. That's an interesting perspective, that despite his moral failings and his vile behavior, the reason some people are willing to excuse it is because it's not them.
Because it's not them. And that's the leopard will eat your face concept,
right.
right? Like
Yeah.
not thinking in terms of collective. We as
Right.
collectively,
That's right.
right? We're thinking singularly.
That's
People they're tired of politics. And I'll be honest. I mean, I didn't want to see one more damn ad. Like,
I know. I know the text messages.
You know, I mean, on both sides, right? But certainly on any Trump ad, I could not get to the remote control fast enough to change that channel or mute as fast as possible before I could change the channel. Like everything out of that man's mouth was atrocious, was an attack on somebody, was a lie, and just downright vile. But people, well, yeah, he says atrocious stuff, but he's been good for the economy. Like the singularism where people just voted for what is good for me versus the collective. The other side talks about is certainly in Christian nationalism discussions of the breakdown of the American family, the nuclear family, or the breakdown of, no, we need Bibles in schools, and we need to say a prayer in school, and we need to, all of these things where it's talking about collectively, indivisible, we as all one nation, right? That was the whole discussion with the kneeling for the national anthem. It's like that one sentence, and under God, indivisible. I can't even think of the words.
Liberty and justice
for all. It wasn't for all. It's never been for all.
Right.
Women are not even constitutionally protected. My ancestors, Native Americans, were not even considered human.
Right.
They were considered savages. My son was only 3/5 of a human.
That's right.
Like you're talking about both sides, you're talking about collective and nationalism and all of us together and unity. Yet everything out of your mouths and everything you do is to divide, to separate, to other, to, and to, have a bigger piece of pie for white men, and the women can get in line behind.
Right.
And they'll make the choices for them.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's absolutely true. So do you feel like you did enough to affect the election in the way you wanted to see it go?
Because when you said that question, I was thinking, did I do enough? So I'll tell you what I did do. I'm a PCO, so a precinct committee officer. So I represent my legislative district. So I've gone to all the meetings and I've, gotten the word out. But because I work in city government, I have to be careful, but I've done everything that I could behind the scenes. I donated weekly to the Harris Walz campaign.
Me too.
I've donated extra every time there was another thing.
Right.
I've donated to so many campaigns in our own state. In fact, a race that has won, I have donated at least once to, at least. I have, talked with folks. I have tried to help people understand, well, you're complaining about this, and the reason why this particular system or program or thing is happening is because when it was time to vote, this decision was made upstream from an elected official or whatever. I'm trying to help people understand how things happen and how votes matter.
Right.
My own son refused to vote. I'll say this too. The other thing that hurt the Democrats is the Palestinian Gaza war. That's the other big thing. So my son refused to vote on the presidential level because of that.
Right.
However, I was like, you will not vote in our local state election.
I feel like stop playing.
Do not have them. I said, your ancestors shed blood on the very ground that you walk and drive on, and you will not pass up your duty to carry on in their footsteps. You don't get that choice.
Right.
So literally, he voted and got his ballot in at like 7:50.
Yeah, that's fine as long as he got it in.
He did it, right? Because he understands. The Electoral College. They just there's a lot of young people that are just like, it's already been decided. We don't need to vote. It's going to go against us anyway.
Right.
But the local, without the electoral college, they're like, okay, here's where my vote actually counts. Here's where I can actually say, have my voice heard.
Right.
So, but yeah, to have, I'm in I think now I'm just emotionally hungover.
I know. Yeah. That's a great term for that. It's a great term for how I feel. And I'm sure you saw my post the other day where I'm a city council member in Mukilteo and I was chairing the meeting and, I was, rushing to get to the meeting, got there on time, basically sat down in the chair and had to start the meeting. And I didn't take the time to like be clear about where I'm at, how I'm feeling and stuff. And then we turn and starts the Pledge of Allegiance. And like, I, there was a part of me that internally froze because the, what I put into the pledge every time I say it feels like it's been taken. And
Right.
while I know that like what I put into it hasn't been taken, nobody can ever take my power. But the message for everyone, liberty and justice for all, felt absent. And I held it together,
Right.
but I almost cried. And I was just like, wow, this is like, I didn't even realize I would get emotional about this because I thought I had gotten most of my emotions out. And it's like, no, it's the
Right.
emotional hangover. You still got emotions. They're just,
Yeah.
waiting in the background. So
Yeah. And that's when you wrote that, when I read that, I was like, oh, I 100% understand that because I was somewhere recently and the Pledge of Allegiance it was at a fundraiser for our new governor, for Bob Ferguson at the convention
okay.
center. Oh. And they wanted to say the Pledge of Allegiance. And I was conflicted. I was like, so I did stand up, but I skipped that whole line.
Yeah.
And I feel like, I fought for this country. I spent 3 years of my life fighting for the freedom for all Americans in this country. And here I am now, 30 years later, fighting against my own fellow country folks
Right.
for those same freaking freedom,
Right.
right? Like it's
Yeah.
very, very conflicting.
Yeah.
And I get the same way. I choke up. It's like, do I mean what I'm saying?
Right.
Does it mean what it was intended to mean? Has the
Right.
meaning been diluted or lost or
Yeah.
only some people, clearly only some people are feeling it.
Sure.
Others are perfectly fine with
Right.
zero regard. And even though, even when Kaepernick knelt,
Right.
people are like, he's not anti-American. He's not going against the flag. He doesn't hate the military. He's
Right.
making a point that the liberty and freedom for all is not true and never has been.
Right.
But you could not convince some people of that. And
Mm.
Trump was one of them.
Right.
He needs to be executed. Anti-American. He's a traitor. It's really mind-boggling. I'm really flabbergasted. I'm going from the emotionally hungover. I am still emotionally hungover, but I'm really starting to enter that absolutely bewildered, flabbergasted stage of how the hell did we get here? How did this happen as far as electing him again?
Right.
How have we gotten to the point where thousands of Black people were texted messages on Wednesday, the day after the election, to report the following day at a certain spot and location to go pick cotton because now you are owned.
Oh wow.
How did we? It just.
Yeah.
Who are
It feels
these
like
people? Right? Like that's
right. No, yeah, you're right. You're right. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I find myself really, really having to fight the urge to look at every single person I don't know with suspicion and any kind of preconceived anything. I mean,
Right. You look like you voted for
it's an
Trump.
active fight.
Yeah. I know. I'm actually in the same boat. You know, it's almost like you can read the people who were Trump supporters because they're the only ones that are like really happy, right? And it's like, I don't know. It's tough because I'm trying my hardest not to demonize people because I'm a firm believer that I'm a person of light. I'm a person of goodness, of care, of empathy, of compassion, all that. And it's just really hard to swallow the fact that even Christian people or even religious people, I mean, that's not the core of who they are. The core of who they are might be their religion or it might be something else, but it's not, let's all take care of each other or let's make a world where everybody can thrive. Right.
Right. Right.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry. It
All
makes
right.
me
So
emotional when I choke.
I know, and I'm sending hugs because you almost made me cry at least once or twice. So that's probably just you and the passion that you bring to everything that you do. So sending love.
Which, that gives me hope because I know that there's more people like you, more people like me, more people like the people that we love and care for.
Absolutely.
That, like I said, if half of the voters, right? We can't say half the country because 15 million less people voted.
That's true.
But if half the voters voted him in, but half didn't,
Right.
half
That's right.
are,
We
are
cannot
willing,
discount that.
right?
Right.
Half are willing to, as I say, armor up. Half
Yeah.
are willing to continue fighting. As Kamala Harris said, the fight is not over. We've just begun. Like we are making incremental progress.
Yeah.
Change takes time, but we are moving the dial. And as long as we don't give up, and like I said, certainly each and every one of us is going to need to tap out from time to time, recharge, refill our own souls and take care of whatever we need to take care of. But then when we're able, link arms again, and then we continue to forge forward. And that's
right.
where I, even being in DC, I honestly didn't care to go. And I'll tell you, I got on the plane and I was the first person they let on because I'm dealing with some health issues right now. But I wasn't the first person because when I got on, Senator Murray was sitting there.
Oh, wow.
And I said to her, and she looked at me and she recognized me. And I said, "Oh, hello." And I said, "Wow, what a time to be going to DC, right?" And I said, I thank you for your service. And I know this job is extremely difficult and only going to get more difficult. So I, as a constituent, I thank you. And I know that I'm speaking on behalf of many people. We thank you for being there because it's going to be rough going forward. And she just looked at me and she just kind of nodded and kind of grimaced. And I said, just know that many of us are in this fight with you. And that's where that gives me hope. When I got to DC and I saw these other people from around the country and I was like, okay, we're all in this together.
Yeah. I think that is one of the most important takeaways for folks who feel disenfranchised is that's the mechanism of darkness is to make you feel less than, feel like you're isolated. And the reality is that's not true. And we need to hold on to that. So I'm gonna skip to the next question because I know I just want to hug you and
Thank you.
but the last question is what do you want to say to the version of you 4 years down the road?
We can do hard things and that we are resilient and that kindness and love wins. And that's what we're all fighting for, right? Like the light will drive out the darkness.
That's right. I completely agree. Okay, Mindy. Well, that's all the questions we have. And I'm going to wrap up this episode by saying we are all different, but we are also all the same. And what matters is we recognize that and move forward to make a better world for all of us. So thank you for your work in the community and otherwise.
Well, much love to you. Thank you for doing this because I think it's really important that we have these discussions because, we can't move forward if we don't learn from the mistakes.
That's right.
And if we don't want to repeat, we have to figure out, okay, what went wrong and re-strategize. But in all honesty, really love, kindness, compassion, as long as we are leading with those, then, we're going to be okay. So that version of me in 4 years from now, it may not be where we want it to be, but I'm going to know that I'm doing what I can do to further humanity. And I'm doing what I can do for my family, my friends, my loved ones, and my community. And that's really all that I have the control over, my actions.
Sure. Absolutely.
And continue to be a light.
Yes. Yes. And we all need to shine bright. Love you
That's
lots.
right.
And I'll see
I
you
love
soon.
you. Have a great day. Bye.